Hello everyone! Back with another episode of DDO, Donut Discusses Origins. Sorry about how nervous I was in the first episode. It's new, and I'm honestly just trying to get used to the idea of running an entire series. But if you guys don't know, I stuttered it in the first episode, but Donut Discusses Origins is basically a series where I analyze, talk about, and basically predict things and maybe share some theories or AUs that I have for the series. Or the series that Origins does. I love Origins, and I've been a part of it for a year. Heck, maybe one day I'll share a video describing how I got into the community to begin with. Maybe, I don't know. But in this episode, I wanted to talk about what my predictions are for Naya's finality, you guys can quote me on that if you want, but finale of Origins of Olympus. We've already gotten closure to 2 characters, so I'm just gonna say this now. Or, I guess, before that, spoiler alert, because if you guys have not seen Naya's channel, I highly advise you do. She's an amazing content creator who honestly changed my life for the better. And I honestly think you should go support her. She's honestly really sweet. But, spoilers ahead, just in case. But I believe that the character we're gonna get closure for the finale, is going to be Lotus. Lotus is the only character we haven't gotten closure to from Naya. We've gotten a close to Bookpoo, we've gotten one to Impu. Lotus is the only one that we haven't gotten closure for yet. So I imagine Lotus is gonna be the one we're getting closure for. And I have a couple reasons for this. There's a lot of plot points of Lotus that we haven't seen ended off, such as their friendship or best friendship with Marshy's character Ray. Those two are freaking adorable together. I love those two. Then we have the plot point of them losing their wing, and I think those are the only 2. If there were more, Naya hid them quite well. But we did get slight closure to Lotus, with them getting a fairy horse, or being one of the Brightpoo kids that got a fairy horse from a dead fairy horse named Helios that used to belong to Brian. But even then, Impu hinted at in the episode where Lotus, or when he comforted Lotus, that maybe when Brian came back, that basically he would freeze the wing until Brian came back, or was revived, so they could try putting it back on. Now, do I think this is possible? I think it could honestly go either way. If Lotus does get their wing back, it would definitely be very sweet and happy, but it might cause a drift between Ray and Lotus, because something that the 2 bonded over was the fact that neither of them could fly. Or that they used to fly, in Lotus' case, but now can't. If Lotus doesn't get their wing back, I think that they would probably learn to accept themselves for who they are. And maybe learn to, or start to try a little method to try and get past the little accident that happened. I think this would be very fun to explore, and we even heard from Naya in her subathon stream that if she did do a season 4 for Origins of Olympus, Impu would no longer be the main POV, as Impu's story is done, basically. But she didn't really say anything about if he wouldn't be a character anymore. So that definitely leaves the possibility of Lotus being the main POV for season 4, if that ever does happen, and I definitely would like to see that. And I might do a whole video talking about my predictions if there is a season 4 of Origins of Olympus. That might be a fun little thing to do. But there's another thing that I wanted to talk about Lotus, and that is the possibility of maybe getting closure for something else that I've been curious about. Their powers. We know Phoebe has healing powers, thanks to Brian. there's a high chance that I believe Atlas has Impu's shadow powers because, well, I might make a whole video discussing that because that's all in itself, but I believe that Atlas will have shadow powers at some point. Or if he's a side character, hopefully, he will have shadow powers that will make a difference, but we haven't seen any powers from Lotus's side, which definitely hints at their plot point of making them feel like they're the middle child out of them, Femi, and Atlas. And I love this about a character. A character feeling bad about themselves, but I think good closure for a plot line like this would be them accepting themselves for who they are, and learning to live with the fact that life might not be the same, but they can still be happy with what they have. This acceptance would also play very well into their entire storyline as well, as they never had accepted that many things before. When they learned the truth about being created so that way Brian could come back, they didn't accept the truth, and honestly went to go ask Impu more, I think. But it's been a while since I watched Origins of Olympus Season 3 from Naya's POV, so I could be wrong on the timing. Another thing I wanted to talk about was Lotus's entire character as is. Lotus definitely had an interesting character, only being it for a couple episodes while Impu took up majority of the POV, alongside Naya and Maya, who ended up being Izunami. And I'm gonna have to make a whole video about Izunami. More video ideas, great. More content. But something I absolutely loved about Lotus's character was how much they stood out, and how much they were like Impu. If you guys don't know, Impu lost his arm in Season 2, and ended up wearing a prosthetic. And speaking of prosthetics, that's what I'm hoping to maybe get a little bit of closure for. My prediction is, or one of them, as I've mentioned before, other things, but one of my predictions is that maybe Lotus will get a prosthetic wing, so that way they can fly normally instead of using their horse. I think this would be very cute, and I think it would honestly bring Lotus and Impu closer together, because we've heard from Impu several times that Magnus is the favorite. But I think seeing Lotus and Impu get a bit more closer as father and child, and maybe having a heartwarming scene about Lotus basically telling Impu that they felt like the middle child for so long. That they were completely, or they felt different from the other siblings ever since they lost their wing. I would love to see a scene like this, because we've only seen Impu comfort his children a couple of times. When Brian came back, he definitely was close to them. When Brian was in pain, that was another one. But I think the scene that really hit hard for Impu being a good dad, which will be another topic, is after Lotus loses their wing, and basically Atlas and Femi and Lotus are terrified of what had happened. Atlas will also be another discussion video of itself. And Impu comforted all three of his kids, trying to be there for them as best as he could. And this is a very important scene because it definitely shifted perspectives a bit of the characters. Lotus learned that maybe Camp Oasis is not the kindest place in the world if you consider some people. Atlas learned that Impu's is a great fighter, learning it the hard way, and Femi just felt guilt and regret. Each of the Brightpoo kids left with a pain, not just from Lotus losing their wing, and all of them could feel it, but a bit of fear and regret in some way. The regret going to Atlas for not being able to help Impu fight Mitch, Femi for not being able to jump out of the way in time, and which resulted in Lotus having to save her, and Lotus losing their wing, and Lotus not being able to fly anymore. each of the kids were left with guilt, and guilt doesn't leave until you apologize to yourself or to somebody else for it. Which leads into another one of my predictions. Maybe another thing that'll be in the last episode or finale of season 4 for Naya's POV is Lotus basically talking to Femi and maybe opening up. We know Lotus has been willing to open up to the siblings before, but maybe they'd be willing to open up a bit more to Atlas and Femi. And maybe talk about how much it hurt when they lost their wing and how much guilt it brought them. I would love to see this type of sibling relationship because there's only a couple of sibling bonds in Origins of Olympus that can really meet the same standards as the Braipu siblings. As far as I know, or in my opinion, the Braipu kids have the healthiest sibling relationship. And I think it's really sweet. I'd love to see more of this in the final episode. Now it's time to go on to the shorter part. Things that I believe might not happen in the end of season 4 for Naya's POV. And in this one, we are not going to be talking about Lotus. We're talking about Impu. Yes, I know, Impu already got closure, and if season 4 does happen, he won't be the main POV, but I do want to talk a bit about him. And also a bit about Bookpoo, because Bookpoo was only in a couple episodes, but he definitely made his mark. The idea of if Impu had been taken by the Book of Death instead of Magnus and ended up killing everybody, not creating the Braipu kids at all, and being the one to kill Brian instead of SR, that was a terrifying thought. Just proves to show how much more powerful Impu is compared to all the other characters in Origins of Olympus. And this also leads to, well, maybe a few ideas for Impu that I'll go into after I say what might not happen for Lotus, and some things that might not happen for Impu. But something I don't see happening is Bookpoo being defeated. He was only for a couple episodes, and even then, he pretty much only talked. We didn't really see him do any bad things, except for when we heard that he murdered his entire dimension, or universe. Yeah, that wasn't pretty. But then again, there might be more to Bookpoo. I didn't really see that much of Bookpoo's part of the quote-unquote finale of Naya's POV. So he could always make his return. Something else I also don't see happening is, well, this might be a sad one, but Impu, basically Impu giving up his role as Egyptian pharaoh. I don't know if he has already or hasn't, but something that I don't think will happen is him leaving Camp Oasis. Naya did say that his plot was over, but like I mentioned earlier, she didn't say if Impu was going to, well, leave Camp Oasis. Camp Oasis is basically home to Impu, in my opinion, and I don't think he would leave that. Plus, his kids really love the place, and Brian can't really go down to the Egyptian underworld. So, I don't think Impu will be leaving Camp Oasis anytime soon. If anything, I think it would be great to see him get older as the series goes on, and maybe become that, like, happy-go-fun grandpa one day. Who knows? The Brightbeard kids might find love of their own one day. And I'd love to see Impu grow old enough to see that happen. Speaking of old, another thing I don't see happening is Impu returning to his original look. As much as I love the original look of the purple tails or black fur and red tips, I don't think we're going to be getting that form back. Impu owns the Ankh of Anubis now, basically, and I don't think he's going to be willing to give that up after everything bad that's happened. Plus, Jorannis is still on the loose, and for all we know, as far as I know, Impu still has that Doom Cube. So, yeah, I don't think he'd be changing back to that look anytime soon. And another thing, he won't be going back to old Pooh. As sweet as having an actually old character in the series that actually acts a bit old, I don't think we're gonna be getting old Pooh back. This leads to yet another thing that I don't believe will happen. And that is, well, Impu getting a new arm. Yes, I love the idea of him getting one, and heck, maybe it might happen. Maybe Lotus and Impu can go get a new prosthetic together. But I don't think he's going to be getting it back by the end of Season 3. Impu lost it basically trying to kill SR, and it actually succeeds of him holding SR. And I think it's very smart how they included that little hint of basically the arm being gone, maybe not just being used for Shadow Arm. Heck, I'm surprised Impu didn't even use the Doom Cube or even use that Doom Cube during the fight against SR. SR had the power of the goddamn mirror, and he didn't even think about using that single item that could have gave him a cactus arm. But I would like to see if Impu doesn't get a new prosthetic. And even as a side character, I'd love to see what would happen if he started comparing himself to Seductive Rose. Imagining, like, if he was in SR's place, because he also lost an arm. If that does happen, or if Naya reconsiders her mind and makes Impu a main plot, or at least a side POV for Origins of Olympus Season 4, if that does happen, I would really like to see that. Impu having, like, a conflicting thoughts, or maybe getting overstressed or overwhelmed with being a camp counselor. Because we knew he did a lot of work, but I'd love to see, like, what would happen if he hit a breaking point where he just couldn't take the stress anymore. And, like, open up to Brian more about this. Now it's time to talk about things for Impu that I believe will happen. And the first one includes Anubis, the father we've never seen. What I'm hoping to see in possibly Season 4... you know what? I'm gonna leave a cliffhanger there, because there's a lot I'm hoping for Season 4 of Origins of Olympus if it ever does come. So I'm gonna leave a little cliffhanger there. And basically that's it for this episode of Donut Discusses Origins. If you guys have any more ideas, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to talk about different characters from Origins of Olympus, SAO, that I have watched. I'll probably let you know if I have watched the characters or not. And MHO. I will be posting more videos today, hopefully. More talking about what I hope for Season 4, and as well as the other two Braipu kids. Because basically this was analyzing Lotus. So, Atlas and Femi are next. As well as our favorite jackal boy, Impu. Heck, maybe I might even analyze Magnus one day if I can finally get around to watching their POV. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and just a heads up, all art in this video except for the background was made by me. I will leave a link to my socials below and my Discord server if you guys want to talk about different ideas for Origins talks that I might be able to do. And you guys don't need to subscribe, as, well, I don't really make any money off of doing this, it's just a little hobby. But I would really appreciate if you guys liked this video. Maybe help it show up a bit more when it comes to Origin-related stuff. I am just doing this for fun and trying to get my name out there a little bit. So if you guys can do that, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for coming to this video, and I really appreciate all of your guys' support as of lately. You guys have been absolutely the greatest. My mental's been taking a little bit of a toll lately of how much work I've been needing to do, which is why I'm going to be trying to share multiple episodes of Donut Discusses Origins in a single day. Let's see how many we can do. But thanks for checking out this video, and I hope to see you all again soon. And once again, leave ideas for me in the comments or in my Discord server. I'd love to see them and see what you got. And that's it for this. See ya!